Are you done fiddling with the stuff? Okay.
Let's go.
Welcome to the main event here on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. I am Rob Rozycki. We have Anthony Alford to my right, and I don't know where Eli Moon's at. What Texas, Guadalajara, somewhere?
He is in San Antonio, and actually en route of coming back to San Antonio, or from San Antonio, I should say.
Okay. Good stuff. Well, again, this is the main event here on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. Rob Rozycki, Anthony Alford. And we have a whole lot of sports content and sports events to really talk about over the last 7 days since we were talking to you the last time on our inaugural broadcast. I am kind of at a crossroads right now because, of course, we're talking to you about 8 o'clock here on Sunday night. And do we lead with the NFL? Do we lead with what happened at Cleveland Browns Stadium or with the Cleveland Browns in Baltimore? What do we do? Double A, I will leave it up to you democratically here. I will let you absolutely just decide this topic.
You know what? I think because there's so much with the Browns that probably wasn't a surprise. Like nothing was really a surprise. And again, we'll get to it. I think starting with the league, starting where, because eventually when you're going to be good, you want to aspire to be the teams that we're going to lead the show off with to eventually get to that point. So I think starting with the teams that are good and, a couple ones that disappointed and then going to the Browns, that's probably a good start. I'm actually very excited to hear also on this show, Rob, your full breakdown of the Guardians. Can the Guardians, because I'm looking at the standings, because I'll tell you, we'll talk Guardians later on. After they lost 10 straight back in July, I dropped the Guardians TV package.
A lot of people did. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the month of June was not good for this team at all. That 10-game losing streak we're all talking about, it seemed like they couldn't score a run for almost a week and a half, and even scoring one or two runs seemed like it was 30 or 40 runs on any given day. But for whatever reason, this team has been dead and buried 3 or 4 times and has come back from the dead 3 or 4 times, culminating with a sweep today over the Chicago White Sox, 3-2, thanks to Bo Naylor, actually. But yeah, the Guardians right now are in the thick of it, 2.5 games out of the wild card spot, 6.5 out of the American League Central, which I don't think anybody is even at this rate counting on as a probable thing, but I mean, it's still mathematically possible. The Guardian schedule works out well. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about with this team for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're going to get to that, but yeah, we're going to start. I think we should start with the teams that actually impressed. See which NFL teams the Browns should go at. Because again, the tough part about where we're at with the Browns, I understand people are upset and frustrated. I'm upset and frustrated, but it's like, the sky is blue. The grass is green in most cases. It's like, this is week in and week out at this point.
It is week in, it is week out. And our buddy Nick Camino at WKYC brought up a great point. We all talk about a long NFL season before it starts, and we all talk about how it's going to be a big process to get through this thing. And then we actually get in it and we realize it's a lot worse than it actually is. And I think that's what's happening right now for Browns fans, is that they were telling themselves all off season that, okay, they're not going to make the playoffs. We're not really playing for much. We're not going to be contenders. And then this season starts the way it did, a heartbreaking loss, a loss on the special teams in week 1. And now you can pretty much say a loss of special teams in week 2. And the Browns are basically, in the words of Dennis Green, who we thought they were. And I think Browns fans right now are very, very surprised. And also, I think, too, they're tired.
Yeah,
because,
that's the big one.
Because you just said it yourself, we're talking about do we make the choice of dealing with the good teams at the top of the show, or do we deal with the Browns? And we've had to make that decision now for both, basically our entire broadcasting careers. And it's just more of the same roll over again. And, you were talking about here, you're really not even that ticked off about what happened this week against Baltimore, an embarrassing loss for Joe Flacco, the Cleveland Browns, on the Baltimore 30th anniversary celebration.
Oh yeah, but by all accounts, I guess, man, I think we'll just blow the rundown a little bit. I guess we are going to start with this because by all accounts, this game had the ingredients of, yeah, I'm upset. Like, I'm like, what the heck? Like, our top receivers, Jerry Jeudy in particular. Jerry Jeudy has the ability to be a big play receiver and can make big plays. Yeah. And then the following play, drop a critical pass.
Yeah, well,
it happens every game.
The offense is inconsistent. With the team today, you really saw the limitations of Joe Flacco. Kevin Stefanski moving him out of the pocket, trying to roll him out like he is a young gazelle, half of the 40-year-old age that he is. And it just wasn't working at all, settling for a lot of check downs, settling for a lot of just very easy, very gimme plays against the Baltimore defense that was kind of content to live them up. And we saw how limited he was. We saw just the lack of mobility in general, a bad interception in the at the tail end of the second half into the third quarter. We're seeing how bad this is, and we're seeing now, and this isn't just on Joe Flacco, who did not look good today, but we're seeing this happen now with the entire offense, is that they are inconsistent, and they are really the weak link of this team when you look at the defense compared to what they're doing.
True. And, the hardest part is always, who deserves the blame? Let's be real about what this is. This is a bad roster, and particularly on offense. It's a terrible roster. Yes, Jenkins did come back. And the thing is, the fact that Jenkins, who essentially only had, one practice?
Yeah, he had one padded practice in his NFL career.
Yeah, had one practice and was essentially not cleared basically until Friday.
No.
And we're going to put you out there for all these carries because we have to. That's the state of your team.
Yeah, he was out there for a lot of snaps, ended up getting 10 carries on the day, 61 yards. 31 of them came on a big carry while Dillon Gabriel made his debut for the Browns against backups. Yeah, but it was good to see him out there and adapting to what the NFL was giving him, and a little impressive that, yes, he actually did have a better day than Derrick Henry did on the other side of the field. But the Browns at this point, and we're seeing it happen online with a lot of the conjecture, a lot of the pundits, a lot of the hot take artists. Is this the time? Is this week 2 going to be when we start asking questions like, who's the quarterback next year? What is Jerry Jeudy going to be on this team next year? What offensive linemen are we going to keep on with into the 2026 season? Are we already starting to play for next year, week 3 of 2025? And that is, if the answer is yes, that is a long road to hoe.
Well, and the problem is, before we answer and address what's going to happen next year, what the hell is going to happen next week?
Yeah.
I mean, you got Green Bay coming into town next week.
But that's my point. That's my point is do you even expect a win? Do you expect a good showing? Or are you a team that right now trying to see what you have for a roster next? Is Shedeur Sanders, is Dillon Gabriel, are any of these young guys going to be it? Is it already time to just send Joe Flacco off to the glue factory with a $6 million check and just move on?
Well,
I think by now might be too early for that, but you have a lot of people asking that question.
Well, I will say this. The easy temptation is to say, you know what, move on from Flacco, find out what you have from Dillon Gabriel. Like, that's the emotional response. And usually I'm locked in step with the emotional response. I'm just looking at, man, if we're talking about, hey, let's build some confidence in Dillon Gabriel, let's build some confidence in Shedeur Sanders, whoever it may be, I don't think putting them out there against Micah Parsons in Green Bay is the right answer from that standpoint. That's the toughest thing about, it's almost a sense of, this is such a bad situation that you almost have to weather the storm and just hope, man, can you limp your way into a W? Because again, you're staring, Rob, into at least 0-6.
Yeah, we all know that the Browns' schedule has not been was not kind to them to really start this thing out with. Bengals and Ravens, and then you're looking at the three NFC North teams that you really got to worry about: Packers, Lions, Vikings.
In a row?
Yeah, in a row,
Oh,
and including the Vikings finishing up in London, England.
Oh my goodness!
Right after London, of course, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers. So yes, this is not a good situation for the Browns at all. I don't know when the right time would be to put a rookie quarterback out there. I think we're learning right now that the key to this, that there might not be a right time. I don't know if you want to wait 6 weeks. You do have the Miami Dolphins coming to town, and they might be one of the few teams that are in worse shape than the Browns. That might be when you do it. But at this point in time, if you're trying to make this comfortable for either Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, you failed, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to be comfortable. You're going to have to pull the Band-Aid off in one shot.
I think looking back at this whole training camp situation, I think looking back, having to focus in on 4 quarterbacks, it turned out to be 3. Oh no, it ended up being 5. 4. It ended up being 5 because Scoop Huntley was here.
Yeah.
So I think this part of this as well. Part of this, you are seeing, there was too many cooks in the kitchen with the quarterback situation. Like Dylan Gabriel's not ready. Shedeur's not ready. Maybe one of those guys could have been ready, but you're giving reps to Scoop Huntley in the preseason.
Well, remember, too, injuries had a lot to do with that, too.
Yeah, and then injuries. And then, of course, remember the whole Kenny Pickett situation, too, before he was hurt. So this has been an issue throughout the entirety of Andrew Berry's run. And I left out Stefanski on purpose. This has been an Andrew Berry problem for a long, long time. The lack of direction of where he wants to take his roster.
Well, and it seems like that indecision messes with him, because the big reason why right now the Browns are in the situation they are at quarterback, obviously we had the Deshaun Watson thing, but, the fallout from there, it seemed like this year there were a few options at quarterback, be it Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins. I know he's still in Atlanta. There were a lot of veteran options and even a couple in the draft. But the game of musical chairs was playing, the song stopped, and the Browns were the only team without a seat, the Browns and Saints. And they kind of had to use Joe Flacco as a consolation prize. Kenny Pickett was the original consolation prize. And we basically amassed as many qualified arms as possible, and we threw it all at the wall, seeing if it stuck. And right now we're seeing not much has stuck, at least on the minds of Joe Flacco. I don't know if it is going to be Gabriel up next, in the near future, or if they're going to try to wait this thing out. But the Browns really have no one to blame but themselves for being in the situation they're in. There's really no other way to kind of look at that otherwise. And it is unfortunate for Browns fans, because they do deserve better. And especially while Baker Mayfield is absolutely doing what he's doing in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and they'll be on tomorrow night
at 7:00 against the Texans.
Yeah. So think about this real quick. So I hate to do this. Buccaneers with Baker.
Yeah.
And then they're facing the Houston Texans team, where a decent chunk of, the
Will
trade
Anderson
with
and
Deshaun,
a lot of those guys came from those picks that the Browns gave them.
That's your Monday night matchup.
Yeah. And I think Browns fans are going to watch that. And I think that's what's exacerbating this about with the quarterback situation specifically, and the team playing like crap in general, is not only the horse that they bet on, Deshaun Watson, by the way, happy 30th birthday today, Mr. Watson, that the guy that they bet on didn't come through, and the guy that they threw away is coming through big time. Whenever you have a situation in sports, when you got a great player leaving and being replaced with another player, or just anytime you're talking about replacing a player and you're a fan, you're always going to look at what the other players are doing, at what the old guy was doing. If it was, Andres Jimenez with the Guardians or Josh Naylor with the Guardians, until there is an adequate substitute in there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we had a play today with Brian Rocchio at second base. He looked like Andres Jimenez. I don't think people are complaining about that trade right now. But while Kyle Manzardo was dinking around first base and the production was slow, people were looking at Josh Naylor. And that's exactly what's happening in Cleveland with this quarterback thing, is that we got nobody here at quarterback. We have, think about this. They were celebrating, those Ravens teams that won the Super Bowl, the one back 10 years ago. The only guy who was still playing was starting at quarterback for the Browns.
Yeah.
That's how old he is. And they're just in a bad spot right now because nothing is working here. And Baker, it seems like everything is working for him. He has yet to play in Tampa and not win a division title.
So let me ask you this, because I brought this up before the show. Because this is different now in terms of how to react as a fan. Because for the longest time, when I was on radio and when I, growing up being a fan and stuff, like a loss like today, I'm
screaming.
I'm livid.
Yeah, you're screaming. We're going crazy.
Up,
we're throwing things.
And I'm watching this, and I'm like, I'm dead inside.
Yeah,
watching this, and I'm like, because you being from the other town, everybody knows. So you being from Pittsburgh. Let me ask you this: when the Pittsburgh Pirates were, for most of their time in the last 20 to 30 years, out of contention by late May, pretty much the moment they step on the field, out of contention, do fans just start not caring?
Well, every couple years, the Pirates would have a decent start and have a good 3-week record, and we would enjoy that for what it was worth, knowing full well that the bottom was going to fall out pretty quickly. But then it was just general apathy. The Steelers were doing their thing. The Penguins, they had generational talents, be it Mario Lemieux, Sidney Crosby. So they had plenty of, winning and Stanley Cups and everything like that. So the Pirates naturally took the third spot, maybe even fourth behind University of Pittsburgh football. But the only conversation that would come up would be, with Kevin McClatchy 20 years ago, with Bob Nutting now, the current owner of the team, just how bad of a job they're doing. That is the only time that we would ever talk about what is going on in PNC Park. Either, hey, they got a great park and a crap owner. That was pretty much the only conversation that you would have, because not only so much with Pittsburgh, and the one thing I will say with Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland compared to Bob Nutting currently in Pittsburgh, Haslam spends money.
Yeah.
He at least, you can debate how wisely he spends it, but he spends
it. Hey, Haslam might spend it on strippers, but man, he does spend the money.
Or he spends $250 million on a quarterback that plays 13 games.
Yeah, that's right.
But Bob Nutting out there, they are notorious. It seems like every year, the last couple weeks of the season, if they have a player getting close to a incentive in the contract, if you get 20 home runs, if you get 200 innings, whatever, or 100 innings, whatever it is, the Pirates are very good at cutting you right before that happens. They are known for scrimping whatever they can in the payroll.
Yeah.
And Key Brian Hayes, they were talking about him the other day, a couple years ago when he signed his fairly big contract for Pittsburgh standards, that Bob Nutting called him the cornerstone of the franchise, and less than a year later he was traded.
Oh, yeah.
So at least they spend money here in Cleveland. With Pittsburgh, there is that horrible feeling, with a guy like Paul Skeens. As great as he is, there is a enjoy him while he's here.
And that's he's gone. And that's how I feel about this defense. Because even in 2025, if you're asking your defense every week, we need you to stop Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, that Lions offense who put up 52 today against Chicago, Aaron Rodgers twice, Joe Burrow twice, or Jake Browning at this point. You're asking this defense every week to hold all these explosive offensive teams to 20 points or less. That's not going to happen. It just can't. And the Ravens were attacking the nickel position. I thought Ross Tucker made a great point.
Shout out to Ross Tucker. He's the best in the business.
He is phenomenal. And I thought he made a great point. It's like the Ravens were attacking the nickel corner position all game long. And then we're going to find out what's going on with Denzel Ward, because he missed a few drives near the end. But how much at some point, and back to Camino's tweet for a hot second, at some point, you're asking this defense to do the impossible. There is no defense in the NFL in 2025 that is capable week to week to hold these offenses to 20 points or less every week. It is impossible in 2025.
No, especially when you factor in injuries and the way the rules are being enforced and the types, the changes to the rules. That's not going to happen. And what we will see, if this keeps on going the way it is, which I assume it will, is the defense will look good, by and large for the next couple of months. It will look good for the next 6-8 weeks. And then sooner than later, they will just collapse. It is inevitable. You put that much stress on a unit throughout the entire year, you might hold the Packers to 20 points. You might very even well hold the Lions or Vikings to 20 points. But sooner than later, guys are going to get hurt. Players are going to stop truly being emotionally invested, because you got to remember, these are guys that are playing finite careers themselves. They don't want to sacrifice their bodies if there's no reason to. And this defense will fall apart at some point in time, no matter how well the coaching is, no matter how great the talent is. If you are stressing on this thing too much, it will fall apart. But at least Myles Garrett gets to cash the checks. So at least he has that.
Yeah. So what did Myles Garrett say post game?
Pretty much said this shit's embarrassing, quote unquote.
Yeah. So cool. I want to be a part of the organization. Oh yeah. How about that money? Right.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I don't think any Browns fan right now is feeling bad for Myles Garrett. He claimed throughout the entire offseason that he wanted an answer at quarterback, that he wanted a long-term plan for the team. He said he got one while he got his check for 40 whatever $1 million. It just made him the highest paid player in the league, or a non-quarterback anyway. And
to be perfectly honest, probably the reason why I'm not uptight on this team really that much anymore,
because there's no expectation.
There's no expectation, and this is a stupid ass team.
Oh yeah, they're
for Grant Delpit to say pregame, to say going into the week, oh yeah, Derrick Henry, he's not that hard to tackle.
That being said, I was going to smoke him for that, but that being said, Henry had 22 yards.
I mean, he did.
They did their job against Derrick Henry.
They did the job, but you gave up 41 points.
Yeah.
You still lost. You still got your behinds kicked.
But again, what 2 of those touchdowns were basically special. Or we had a bad interception from Flacco. They had a short field. They had the block punt. That was a short field. That was 14 of those points real quick. And again, you're going to have this defense sitting here going, we can only do so much to hold your asses up.
Yeah.
And sooner than later, it's just not going to be enough. And I agree with you on this the word stupid, because, and I know it was just a couple of plays and it's a microcosm of what's going on. It's just a slice. But I thoroughly enjoyed today having Ross Tucker and the rest of the broadcast team talking about how big of a leader Myles Garrett was while the defense was on the field and he was on one knee panting on the sideline like a dog because he needed a blow, because he had to run after Lamar for a play.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anybody truly understands what it takes to win games consistently. I don't think anybody truly understands the discipline and the intensity that you are going to need day in, day out, the maturity that you're going to need day in and day out. You can't be going to anime festivals while your team is doing off-season training activities. If you want to be a leader, be a leader. If you want to be a celebrity, go be a celebrity. But you can't do both.
It's a culture thing, right? I mean, we've seen across the board in the NFL, and we're going to talk about them next segment. We've seen across the board teams that have an unbelievable winning culture, that have the right people in them. Not only are they winning, they're blowing out bad teams. They're blowing out teams that have expectation and, are coming up short. It's a culture thing. And
well, you talk about culture. We have the Sunday night game on right now. I'm looking at Atlanta's backup kicker playing right now because Young Oku missed a field goal last time around and was not cut, but benched. Andre Schmidt out there, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. Jake Moody for the Niners, who was a draft pick,
Yeah.
I think a third-round draft
and
pick
on the team for a couple of years
for
too.
the Niners. And Kyle Shanahan basically said,
"Hey, do you want to be the Bears practice squad kicker?"
Yeah. He said in an interview, it got to a point where once the fans didn't believe you can make extra points and field goals, once your teammates don't believe, hey, if we put you out there, you're going to make it or not, I have no choice. I have to do what I have to do. And that's what winning teams and winning cultures, that's what they do. We don't do that here.
No.
We have never done that here. And that's why this football team is and will continue to be in the state that they're in, because nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing's going to change. And I don't know any other organization. To your point last week about probably the only reason why Stefanski and Andrew Berry are still here is because it was ownership who made the decision on Deshaun Watson. Yeah. We think allegedly it was ownership who made that call, and you don't want people to take the fall for your decision making, but there ain't no effing way. You're going to rely on Andrew Berry to build the next roster? You're going to rely on Andrew Berry to look at the quarterbacks that's competing in college right now, some of which are struggling at this moment, to say, hey, we're going to put that quarterback in this building and be successful? No way. No way.
No, there and we see it happen all the with this team even before with the Brian Hoyer years, the Josh McCown, Johnny Manziel, that whole run is that the worse the culture gets and the worse this organization gets, the closer to Jesus the quarterback is going to have to be to walk in and change this thing. And the further and further down this hole you get, the harder it is going to be to pull it out. And it just does not seem like, and to go to your point on the 49ers kicker, there is no sense of urgency here. It doesn't seem like Kevin Stefanski's ever on the hot seat. Doesn't seem like Andrew Berry's ever on the hot seat.
That's the biggest
point.
Like
the kicker's on the hot. It doesn't seem. It just
nobody gets in trouble. Nobody gets in trouble for their mistakes. Nobody.
And it's tough for this year. With a year that you're walking in with low expectations, and that you're not going to be that good. Do you want to judge Berry and Stefanski that harshly? But you also got to look at the reason why we're in this spot. This team, when Stefanski and Berry took over, had a number 1 overall pick playing defensive end, had a number 1 overall pick at quarterback, had a good infrastructure. And Myles Garrett's still here, but they blew that offense out quick. And if you're wondering why Kevin Stefanski's having trouble finding a quarterback, is because the one he was supposed to have, they threw out of town. So people need to be held accountable for the mistakes made last year, the year before that, and even this year. Because yes, if you're not good, it's supposed to be good. If you're not going to high expectations, there's still discipline mistakes you can make. There's still coaching mistakes you can make. There's still playing mistakes you can make. And it's a pretty ridiculous scenario. And I think we're seeing it happen in the country at large, not just in sports, but with the Cleveland Browns now too, is if I'm a player on this defense, or I'm a player on this offense, and I see the head coach and the GM getting by scot-free all the time and not being held accountable for any mistake they make, why am I going to respect them holding me accountable? Why am I going to respect them picking me apart? Because maybe you should be the one picked apart, because you're the guy who's been here for all 6 of these crappy years. I've just been here this year.
Myles Garrett has been involved with several speeding ticket incidents. And again, personal lives is one thing, but it's at a rate where one of these days he's going to kill somebody.
Oh, yeah, he's probably back in Cleveland right now,
right.
Actually. I wouldn't be surprised.
He's going to kill somebody on the road. It's Myles Garrett, so no penalty for that. Shador does the same thing. Nothing, essentially, right? And then to add on, the kicker that's on this team can't make critical field goals.
Well, I mean, even if you want to talk about disciplinary stuff, off the field stuff, you got Quinshawn Junkins right now, who signed late, and we were commending him by getting out on the field late and only having 1 practice. The reason why he only had 1 practice was because his name was in a police report in Broward County, Florida, for a domestic assault complaint. That was why that was held up. Isaiah Bond, we're talking about the Browns. He was returning kicks today. They signed into a pretty good rookie free agent deal. The reason why it was a rookie free agent deal was because he was having legal problems of his own before he got in here. And then you bring up Michael Hall, you bring up Perrion Winfrey, you bring up all of the Deshaun Watson. I know it wasn't legal, an actual crime. It was more civil, but you're bringing in guys that do whatever they want off the field.
Yeah.
They come on into here, they're accepted, not only in Judkin's case, accepted, but he got a fully guaranteed second rounder contract. He basically got paid like nothing happened. There is no accountability. And if nobody thinks they're ever going to get punished for a mistake, then they're not going to care if they make mistakes.
They're going to keep doing. They're going to keep doing it. And I thought Eli brought up a good point last week. I know he's not with us today.
It happens once in a while.
But he brought up a great point. It was like, Andrew Berry is the one general manager who bypasses all the character flaws. Everybody else, they may look at some of those things and say, forget about, we're going to go to somebody else. Andrew Berry passes on or looks at those character flaws and says, hey, we can fix it. You're 6 years in, and you're staring at another top draft pick again.
Yeah. And
you want him to build this roster for the future next year?
Well, that's why, in my other job, I had a tough time talking about Brown's draft, and I probably will if everything stays the same next summer. Because why do we analyze anything? Why do we look at anything? Why do we say what this team needs when we have no confidence in the person making these decisions? Now, I will, in all fairness, I want to stay fair on this, but you look at some of these young guys that Barry did draft. Harold Fannin making a lot of noise, a lot of targets. He's catching the ball.
BG's own.
Yes, I know you're very happy about that. Look at Schlesinger, the UCLA linebacker, second round player. Even look at Mason Graham in the first round. He's playing very well too. So this draft class, at least right now, does not look horrible. And if they continue to play well, then maybe I might have a little bit more faith in him come next off season. But up until right now, when I was talking about this draft class going into it, this is a dude who really hasn't drafted any sort of top end talent in 5+ years at the time. So why talk about it and analyze it? So, but maybe it might turn around right now. But I don't know. We've been talking about this crappy football team for about a half an hour. Do you want to break here and then move off and do something else that's maybe not so crappy football?
Yeah, man. Listen, this is they are so bad. They are so bad, man.
Yeah, and at least that $600 million check from the state is still going to cash.
Hey, listen. Thank goodness for the Cavaliers. Thank goodness. I can't believe I'm saying this. Thank goodness for the Guardians.
Well,
we'll see.
And we'll get into the Guardians next segment here a little bit because the Guardians, it's a great juxtaposition from the fans because you have these Cleveland Brown fans who are used to sub 500 teams and are used to last place finishes, always showing up and being happy to be there. Meanwhile, the Guardians 85, 90 wins every year. Fans always want more. So yeah, we can get into that a little bit also too. We can talk a little bit of the wrap up this NFL docket here from around the league. I know the Lions dropped a 50 burger on their old offensive coordinator, and we had a Super Bowl rematch actually happen, and it was about as dull as you might think a Week 2 game might be.
I was going to say, would you take the blowout or the game that happened this afternoon?
Well,
I would take the close game in the Super Bowl, but oh my goodness,
it was
that was nap time.
But yeah, we'll get into really all these NFL stuff, and then maybe even obviously the baseball, and we might even talk a little wrestling too at the end of this whole fiasco. But this is the main event here on the I almost said our all sports handle there on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. I am Rob Rozycki. That one is Anthony Alford. We'll be right back here after I was going to say some of these messages, but after this very pleasant weight screen. Welcome back here to the main event on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. I don't know what we did with our lighting in the 5 minutes that we were sitting around, and Anthony is now going to try. Actually, I think I know what happened, Anthony, and we're going to laugh. Don't touch anything.
Did that change it?
It's not. Yeah, no. But yes, my bald head is now shining for the world to see. Here on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network, do radio. They said it would be fun. They said,
don't let anybody tell you different. White balance matters.
Yes, it is not for pussies.
Right, white balance matters.
All right. Well, I think Anthony is done with our troubleshooting here. Actually, now that you're sitting, let me check. Does that?
Look at that!
Wow.
Look at the difference in the lighting. Boy, Pete's gonna be so upset.
Yeah, he loves this right now. Sorry, Pete.
To tell you, I think I have a few talents. Studio technology.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on that. It's
not one.
Yeah, there's room for improvement there.
I have a quick stat to bring to you before we get to the NFL.
Oh, yes, actual sports, yes.
So my buddy Earl the Pearl does a great job over at Fan and Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Tweeted this. Said here the Browns are now on an 8-game losing streak, longest active losing streak in the league.
Yeah.
And in those 8 games, the offense, led by Kevin Stefanski, is averaging 13.1 points per game. The last time the Browns offense put up 20 points in a ball game,
oh God,
was Week 13 of last season against Denver, that Monday night game, when they put up 32. That was when Jameis went. We got the full Jameis Winston experience. The Browns passing offense. Hold up. I had an Amber Alert that just popped in. Give me a second here. Okay, hold up. Okay.
There's nothing you have to tell us about. Okay, cool.
It popped up on my phone. I'm trying to read this, and we'll make sure everyone is safe. The Browns passing offense doing this 8-game losing streak. 236.4 yards per game, 10 touchdowns, 17 interceptions.
That's a team that needs a quarterback, and a team that that really had one job this offseason, that was to find one, and they couldn't. So that's the kind of numbers you have. And yeah, I mean, you can't put it on the defense. I think it was under 40 yards they gave up to Baltimore in the first half, and then even look at the last half of the Cincinnati game. It was the 7 yards of total offense, or whatever the number was. The defense has been on point, but yeah, to our old previous point, you're only going to be able to lean on that for so long before teams score 40 points on you.
Can we talk about teams that impressed? Maybe a team that didn't impress in this here Week 2 of the National Football League?
Well, I was happy with the Lions. I know there was a lot of questions that were surrounding Dan Campbell's squad going into this game. They did very un-Detroit things and lose that first week. I can't believe un-Detroit things is losing Week 1 of the NFL season.
I can't wait for the Browns to get to that point. It'll happen one day.
But yes, a pretty lackluster performance against the Packers. They had another division opponent today. Ben Johnson, their former offensive coordinator in the Chicago Bears, dropped the 52-burger on them. I think they did make a point to drop that amount of points on their old offensive coordinator while people were saying that, hey, with these new coordinators in town, obviously Detroit has lost both of their coordinators. I think that was what everybody was talking about this season, that they were worried that maybe that offense wasn't going to be as efficient. The defense wasn't going to be as efficient. And I think they shut everybody up with that. So I would give my happy thoughts to Detroit.
How about the media? The report. There was a reporter, Detroit, who was like, Coach Campbell, could you have kept everything that Ben Johnson was doing and not change a thing? And he looked at it, was like, what are you talking about? It was after last week's game against Green Bay. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, that game, that did two things for the Lions. Number one, obviously, telling America, hey, we're still a Super Bowl contender. We're still the Detroit Lions. We're still a contender. We still have one of the best offenses in the NFL. And number two, that was a F.U. Ben Johnson. And F everybody who thought like he's the reason this coach was the reason why this team was successful. No, that's not always the case.
No, and it was for Jared Goff too, because that I think it was the 0-17 record that was flying around whenever he was starting games that the plays weren't called by Ben Johnson or
McVay.
Yes, McVay out in the Rams, and he needed something like that today. 23 of 28, a very efficient game today. 334 yards, 5 touchdowns on the afternoon. Again, I think it was a statement game for basically that entire Detroit offense. And while doing that, they also kind of proved that for the second straight year, I think Chicago is not as far along as we might have anticipated. And Chicago still has some work to do. And I think the people that were assuming that they were going to rise above the 4th team in the NFC Central there, or NFC North, I think they're not going to be able to do that. I think they're going to still be a quality 4th team, and they still got a lot of a lot of work to do with a young quarterback and a young coach.
My impressive team today. Don't look now. The New England Patriots is back.
They're back.
We're
going to say they're all the way back.
Hey, well, okay. All right,
we're doing a documentary on this year, Double A. We're gonna get Bob Kraft and go we're all the way back.
Hey, once we fix these lights here, absolutely. No,
okay.
Drake May is gonna be a special player in this league. Already, he accounted for 3 touchdowns. Of course, their backfield is amazing. And then, how about the sequence you pointed out to me? And I watched it live. During the Browns game, we was getting updates like, the Dolphins had, a punt return score. And then the next play was the kickoff. And Antonio Gibson, 90-yard kickoff return for the touchdown. Unbelievable.
I'm not going to say they're all the way back yet because, you brought it up. They were playing the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins walked into today and we could probably even put those that team on the list of disappointments right now.
They're disappointment number 1.
Well, no. I think like with the Browns, the expectations were low enough where they're not my number 1 team. But that being said, the expectations were low. If New England was taking the steps forward that they thought they were taking, they should be able to. And we got Double A freaking out about the Sunday night game.
No, man, Drake London, man, I had him started. He's up here fumbling.
Oh well. 6-0 Atlanta.
Football.
Yeah, fantasy football.
But that's how my blood pressure gets up and going. It ain't even because of the Browns anymore. I think that's how we have changed in watching sports now. It's fantasy football. I don't do much gambling but gambling was the other thing. But really, come on, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Back to Miami. I'm sorry.
No, but I think we have to take a look at the competition for New England and what they were doing. They actually have Pittsburgh coming up next week. And that'll be not to spoil anything, but that might come up in my list of disappointments for the week 2 of the NFL docket. But let's see what happens when they do have to face the Bills in a couple of weeks. They got the Titans and the number 1 pick coming up a few weeks after that. I don't know if that's going to test them or not, but the Patriots have a very pleasant schedule for NFL standards, so this might be a year that they actually get some wins in there, and they might actually do some damage in the I would think AFC wild card race. I would still give Buffalo this division.
Buffalo. I know Josh Allen had a little injury with the face. He came back in, make sure he's okay. New England, the way the schedule's playing out and what's going on there, reminds me a little bit of what happened with Denver last year, where Denver started to come along a little bit and they got that last spot in the wild card. And then this year, they're expecting big things with Denver, who, by the way, we watched in our red zone how they lost where they should have won. The Colts field goal kicker missed a 60-yarder, and then Denver's special teams, their defense, touched the center. 15-yard penalty. Colts kicker made the 45-yard field goal, wins the game.
Yeah. It was a heartbreaking loss. I'm not going to feel bad, though, sitting in Cleveland for a Denver fan that has to deal with a heartbreaking loss.
No.
Yes.
You'll hear that somewhere else.
Defeat snatched from the jaws of victory for sure. But if we're talking about big happy surprises and bad surprises, right now, I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers as a question right now for me in this league. Yes, they're 1-1. Yes, they look good really in the first week against New York. The offense looked good. Most offenses look good against the Jets. Just ask Josh Allen. But the defense on the other end, this is kind of how the Browns defense was billed last year. They are the highest paid defense in the league in 2025. And last week they gave up 32 points. This week it was 31. And I understand Jalen Ramsey had a great impact play at the end of the game last week. But the defense, again, a very lackluster showing, a couple of dumb mistakes on special teams, a muff kick. It was just a very sloppy game, pretty much all the way around the ball. Aaron Rodgers did not look all that great considering. And for a team that is, and this is how I'm thinking of the disappointments, everything the Steelers have done with signing Aaron Rodgers, with trading for Jalen Ramsey, with going recently now for Jabril Peppers during this week. They are in win now mode, and a Seahawks team that is feisty, pretty decent, that should not be a team that you're dropping a game by 2 touchdowns, 31-17. And yeah, Pittsburgh, they got, as I said, New England coming up next week. They got a London game against the Vikings the week after that, and then the Browns and Bungles. So they will have an opportunity to get back right, to get some confidence back in the fans. But a Steeler fan out there is not confident in that defense. And for a Pittsburgh Steeler fan to not be confident in the defense, it's a weird spot to be. So
and you know what, the Steelers, they're in an interesting situation because are they really, really good because, they beat the Jets, or is this is who they are? And they had a kickoff, special teams again coming into play, where the game kind of turned. Seattle kicked the ball off to Pittsburgh. The ball rose past one of the returners for the Steelers, and then the Seahawks scored.
Yeah.
And I think that flipped the game. And
yeah, you gave him 7 points. Yeah, it was the returner not knowing the rule. It was the returner. They called it a rookie or a young kid mistake. But I don't know on any level of football where the ball on the kickoff isn't live like that. And just on a bigger standpoint, we saw it. You just talked about it with the Miami New England game. 75% of kickoffs were returned last week, and we're starting to see that really becoming a thing. And now, granted, not every team is screwing up the way the Steelers did and just giving their opponents 7 points, but we're seeing that come into play a lot more with a lot of big returns, with a lot of. We saw it with the Browns that there were a couple times field position changed around with a pretty big punt and kick return.
How many players? Because I'm not going to lie. Yeah, too. I'm not going to lie. I went off a little tangent on the high school football broadcast because I'm like, man, it's great that we actually see a real kickoff, in high school football, as opposed to all these rule changes. And I think the NFL realized last year that they completely screwed up, saying how many teams or players across the NFL you think actually know the rules of the kickoff, like percentage-wise? Because I don't think, watching some of these plays, watching some of these kickoffs, I don't think everyone has a clear-cut answer or rule how to deal with those kick returns.
The particular rule that Steelers screwed up, that's been a rule since the NFL's been the NFL. The ball's live on a kickoff.
Yeah.
You don't need to have the returning.
That's why I was like, how did that happen?
If I would think that there are actually a pretty decent amount that might not know the fine points of these rules, but that's no excuse. If your job is to return kicks in the NFL, you better know the rules. If your job is a lawyer, you better know the law. If your job is a knee surgeon, you better know how the knee works.
Even if the rules change. You especially need to know
how many times
when you get new information.
How many times in medicine do you get, new techniques and new procedures and new ways of doing things? And I'll guarantee you the rules for a kickoff, although complex, are not nearly as complex as something that, a surgeon would have to deal with. So it is on them to know the rules of the game. We see all the time, it pops up on my Facebook feed a lot of Devontae Adams, or it was a Packers returner. The ball was, getting close to the sideline. He put his foot out of bounds and fell in and caught the ball because he knew the rule that much. So These guys need to know the rules. There is no excuse for not knowing the rules. You are getting paid a lot of money. There is a lot of pressure. It is your job in some cases to know these rules.
You got to know these rules. And you got to coach up these rules. You got to coach up all the differences.
And a guy like Mike Tomlin, and I did not hear his post-game response to to that play, but I'm sure he will take responsibility as a coaching staff because we need to coach better. Maybe we need to sit these guys down and explain to them, frame by frame, each rule by rule by rule by rule, to make sure that they know what's going on and not just assume that because, you're achieving your lifelong dream by playing in the NFL, you're actually going to know how to do it. So they might have to actually coach these guys up.
My disappointment, and this may seem unfair.
Red zone commercials?
This may seem unfair because earlier today, the Cowboys and Giants that was an all-time great game. Great game, great finish. Joe Davis and Greg Olsen, those are two of the very best broadcasters covering football. They had an outstanding call. Russell Wilson, not even necessarily the Giants, Russell Wilson, because yes, Russ made a huge play to kind of set up the overtime with Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is a beast, but the last part of that overtime, he just threw the ball up in the air, up for grabs.
You can tell he came out with Jameis Winston too much.
Yeah, and funny enough, who else is in that quarterback room? Jameis Winston.
Lord deliver me from interception.
I mean, some of this stuff you cannot make up. You always got to give your team a chance to win, and in particular with the Giants, who, let's just be real about it, wins are going to be tough to come by.
Yeah. For
the New York Giants, especially looking at how tough the NFC East is going to be this year. That was a game you needed. You had to have that game. You had to have found a way to either close out. I would even have mine if you're a Giants. I know nobody likes ties, but you can't lose the game that way. And that was the issue with Russ, really over these last 3 or 4 seasons, where he has that arm strength. He is phenomenal in terms of, hey, he can set his foot down, get the ball in the air, drive the ball down the field. That's not a problem. The issue is there are those few plays where he becomes undisciplined and he costs his team the W.
Well, yeah, you even saw that a little bit with Joe Flacco and that bad interception he had earlier today. It was just him being frustrated. The passing game wasn't moving, and they just threw the ball up and tried to make something happen. The one I think we'll throw in another disappointment loser in here right now, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. And we can
Good call. We can talk.
Yes, they actually did. And it's weird to talk about a 2-0 team as a failure, but yeah. They did beat the Browns in a game that pretty much anybody who watched it realized they should have lost that game. And then they had a nice little comeback against the Jaguars with a backup quarterback. The reason why they needed Jake Browning, their backup quarterback, Joe Burrow, left with a foot injury in the third quarter. We do have an update on this, which I think is going to make Cincinnati's day even harder. And this is courtesy from Adam Schefter about 20 minutes ago on X. Sources say that images of Joe Burrow's turf toe injury are being sent to a noted foot specialist to be reviewed. If surgery is deemed necessary, it would be expected to sideline Burrow for at least 3 months. Burrow was in a walking boot and in crutches after today's game. This is an organizational failure. This goes all the way back to the day that they drafted Joe Burrow, and they did not want to draft any linemen to go with him. Remember, it was Jamar Chase that was drafted with him. It was receivers. Yep. And you even go into now this offseason, it wasn't, yes, okay, we needed to find an offensive lineman, but it was pay the receivers, pay the receivers, pay the receivers. Well, guess what, Joe? Your boys got paid, and you're going to be dragging your foot around for the next 3 months. And the Cincinnati Bengals, I love Jake Browning. They're not going to do anything if he's the quarterback.
Oh, they're going to have another losing season.
And I would think so. I'll be feeling very fortunate to be 9-8.
Yeah, this is going to be – and let's add one other thing. I couldn't believe this because your franchise is limping off the field. And I was thinking to myself, it was just a random observation. I'm like, normally in these situations, if my franchise quarterback is hurt in that capacity, we're getting the cart out. He's getting carted off the field. You know the Bengals are one of two teams. I don't know who the other team is. You know the Bengals are one of two teams in the NFL that does not have a cart. So when their player, when Joe Burrow
costs money.
Yeah. So when Joe Burrow gets hurt, he has to limp back to the locker room. I think Jamar Chase got hurt at some point during this game too, and you see him limping his way with trainers back to the locker room. It's what happens when even star players, when you're surrounded by in a garbage organization, this is the result.
And the Bengals, and this will be another chapter of the story about how the Bengals, with Joe Burrow, mind you, the only AFC quarterback to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, by the way.
Yeah.
They're going to waste him. He is going to play out whatever contract he has here. He might force his way out. He might pull a Carson Palmer and want to get traded to the Raiders and want to get traded to somewhere else, the Cardinals, somewhere that he has a chance of winning. But the Bengals have a generational quarterback talent. They have a quarterback that, 27, 28 teams would trade their guy in a heartbeat for. Unless you have Lamar, Josh Allen, or you have Patrick Mahomes. Are you really? Yeah. And they're going to completely waste him. And they're probably going to shorten his career by the fact that he's getting his head kicked in pretty much every game. The play that he got hurt on was a bad sack where a couple of guys did get pressure, did break containment, and he was rolled up in the toe, did get bent up. So this is pretty much on the organization there. I wouldn't say it's on anybody specific.
My concern, this can turn in, and again, you have more extensive history on what happened with Barry Sanders, where like a Hall of Fame career, and Shorty was just like, I'm done. That's that.
Well, Barry walked. I mean,
I know he walked.
I think this is going to be closer to Carson Palmer. I think
I'll give you that.
Going to be
same
team. I mean, even with the Bengals and all that,
Carson Palmer should have had
with Carson Palmer. He was in the playoffs. He turned that team, fairly relevant for about 4 or 5 years.
The way we should be talking about Carson Palmer today, and the fact that we're not, because of how the Bengals treated him, is a crime.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's sad because the same thing may happen with Joe Burrow.
I think the exact same thing is going to happen. It's the same ownership. It's Mike Brown both times. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we're talking about the Bengals in the same way of doing things, and we are seeing now. While parity is key in the NFL, the salary cap is the same for everybody. The rules are to keep everything as balanced as humanly possible. Really, the one thing that isn't balanced now, yes, every organization could have an anomaly, a good season by accident, but you're seeing now the well-ran organizations compared to the crappy ran organizations. And I hate to break it to you, but if you're the Bengals or any team, the Cardinals come to mind too. If you're a team that is known for shoddy management, Browns, then the best you can hope for is a random anomaly season, because you're not going to be the Steelers. You're not going to be the Packers. You're not going to be these, the Eagles now that are just used to success. It seems like over and over again, the Chiefs. So it's not going to be the case. Well-ran teams win games. Poorly ran teams don't.
You think this is a loaded question. You think the Guardians are a well-ran organization? This is a loaded question.
Oh, we're going to change now to this. Yeah, I mean,
this is a loaded question.
Well, and we're talking here, the main event here on the Inside Edge podcasting network. Yeah, I mean, yes, I believe they are. I think they do have they're not perfectly ran. There are a lot of fans out there, and I tend to agree with them that a few more bucks being spent on this team would not be the worst thing. But then you look at the management of the resources they do have, the fact that they do routinely spend less than 75% of the teams out there, but are in the playoffs or around the playoffs, it seems like every year. I mean, Terry Francona, he had 11 years here. They were around the playoffs pretty much every year. I think that they had about a dozen games under Terry Francona's run that they played when they were eliminated from playoff contention. And Stephen Vogt has yet to have a game like that. So we'll see, we'll see how they do with the remainder of this season. But when it just comes down to making something out of nothing, the Guardians, I think, are better than that with almost anybody in sports. Now, what I'm sure somebody will say in the comments to me is, why do they have to make something out of nothing? It's their own financial discipline. It's their own financial rules. It's their own procedures. It's their MO. So they make life hard for themselves a little bit, but they tend to thrive pretty well.
I'm going to say this too, and I think, and probably, on the other side, we'll go into how they could still make the playoffs somehow. Because I could, as somebody who hasn't subscribed to Guardians TV since the 10-game losing streak, part of it due to budget, other part is due to it was, I don't think I'm good luck. And then they started winning. So I can't resubscribe if they start winning because I got rid of it. If I jump back, they're going to lose again. It's superstition. We're sports fans. It's what we believe in. I think sometimes too, because anytime the Guardians do bad, and we saw it especially with the 10-game losing streak, we saw this past offseason where it looked like the Guardians didn't really do much of anything to improve the team.
No, they signed Austin Hedges and they signed Carlos Santana, who they have since cut.
Yeah. So I think teams, because I think we do this in life. You can look at somebody or some company or some organization that has money. If they spend it on the wrong player, or you spend it on the wrong product, or you spend it on the wrong food, or whatever it is, if you're rich, if whatever it may be, you have money, it's just a bad, we made a mistake.
Yeah.
We made a mistake. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you spend on a video game that you're not supposed to spend on, or, you're not really saving or doing what you need to do, then more people get on your case. I think that's how all of us kind of treat the Guardians.
Well, with the Guardians too, they're the and we'll obviously we can get into this more after the break. They're gun shy, and I can see why. Most of the big contracts they have dropped. If it is Edwin Encarnacion, if it is Nick Swisher,
I think of Nick Swisher. Yep.
Even if you look at the Andres Jimenez extension, really any contract besides Jose's money, it has been kind of seen as bad money. I mean, you're paying the knock on Jimenez was you're paying this defensive first, second baseman, like he's a top 5 guy in the league right now, but he's not really a top 5 guy in the league. Encarnacion was good, not great. Nick Swisher, Michael Bourne, that's the biggest example of it. To your point, whenever you make 2 bad contracts like that and you don't have money to buy your way out of it like the Yankees or the Dodgers, then that can set your organization back a couple of years. And I think if I'm putting my feet in the shoes of Antonetti and Mike Chernoff, 2 guys who run this team, they don't want to put themselves in that situation again. If they screw up a temporary move and one season goes away, okay, we always have something to start up next year. But that same hell the Browns are at right now. We suck. How are we getting out of it? There's no help coming. There's nothing that can be done. The Guardians are doing everything they can, I think, to avoid that. And sometimes, and their critics will say this big time, sometimes in avoiding that, you're also avoiding the big move you would need to do some damage in the playoffs and break a World Series drought that we've had since 1948.
It's always the age-old question that we bring up time and time again. Do you want to be us, or even Tampa for years, probably not this year, but for years, where you're around, you do just enough moves, smart moves, whatever it may be, to be in the playoff picture and then maybe compete? Or do you want to be, I always think of the Kansas City Royals in the mid 2010s, or the Florida Marlins back in the day, where you build up a team, you win it all, and then it falls apart.
Well, the question, and I was running this earlier this year on my radio show, and I had the records, thrown. I don't have the numbers in front of me, unfortunately. But you have about the same, 10 years here. You have about the same amount of wins, same amount of playoff appearances, but one team has 2 World Series appearances. The same team also has 3 100-loss seasons in that standpoint. And meanwhile, the other team, same amount of wins, same amount of playoff appearances, no 100 loss seasons, but no World Series appearances or wins. What would you rather be? One is the Kansas City Royals. The other one's the Cleveland Guardians. And that's always the age-old question of, what do you want? Do you want year after year of consistency? Do you want relevant baseball every year? Or do you want to just throw everything in the middle of the table once in a while and see if we can do it? And okay, if we don't do it and have a crap couple of years afterwards, then so be it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, would you take the championship parade?
I think most people in Cleveland would take the championship parade.
But to follow, you take the championship parade, opening day the following season, and then things fall apart, or consistent regular season success. That's the toughest thing, because on one end, right now, when we start talking about like, the Guardians could be in position to get a wild card, there's a outside shot still of the division, outside, but it's reachable.
Yeah.
Today, you can say, man, it could be we want the Guardians path. But a month ago, or when it was really bad, F this. That's so tough with this. Meanwhile, the Yankees and the Dodgers, especially the Dodgers, seemingly nothing to worry about, although they're in a dogfight.
But then you have the worst of both worlds. You have the New York Mets right now, who have a gigantic payroll, and they have one of the worst records in baseball now over the last 6 weeks. And they're, for the first time after having the best record in baseball a couple of months ago, if the playoffs were to start today, they're not in it.
And I noticed when you mentioned some of the names earlier that they left, and you kind of think about there was one name you left out, and it was Francisco Lindor.
Yeah.
Because we're good. We're kind of.
To take it back to that first segment here. Yeah. You even take a look at the trade that was made. They got Andres Gimenez. They did get him out of New York, and they also got Amed Rosario, who was at the time going to be the starting shortstop, who was a decent enough player. He had his foibles, but he was okay enough. And there were definitely points in time where he was far better than okay. People weren't screaming about it. People weren't going crazy about it. And what also helped too was that Lindor took a few years to kind of adjust to the Mets. So he wasn't playing all that well. So it really kind of made that a little easier to deal with. But if Jimenez never made the majors, if Amed Rosario was up here for 2 weeks and then was cut, then we would have been screaming about it. But you got something back, and that's why I say, to take it back to your question a few minutes ago, they are a well-ran organization, because when you do trade these guys, most of the time you get usable pieces back. I can draw the line between. And I'm going to take it all the way back here to Eddie Taubensee, who was a backup catcher for the then Indians in the early 90s. They traded him for Kenny Lofton. And if you watch the way that Kenny Lofton was, he was traded for, I believe, Marquise Grissom. I think there was a couple of other trades in there that brought us Jake Westbrook for Corey Kluber, that brought us Corey Kluber for Emmanuel Clase. And those guys managed to turn that one backup catcher into multiple generations of players. And that's not an anomaly. We've gotten, Cliff Lee, Brandon Phillips, and Grady Sizemore for Bartolo Colon. So, you go to the Pirates of the world, you go to the White Sox of the world. A lot of these times when they trade a big ace or a big bopper away, they don't get anything really back. And the Guardians are great at kind of recycling that, the circle of life kind of thing. And again, they are operating within their own constraints. They're not being told to spend no money, but they are still making the best out of a bad situation.
So it is mid-September. Might as well get it out of the way now before the break. It's mid-September, and you're looking around. It's like, oh man, the Guardians only 2.5 back. Now, a week ago, they were winning, but everybody else in the wild card picture was winning too. So
it's still been basically the same way.
Yeah, so nobody was able to break away, but the Guardians still in the thick of it. And Rob, you've been paying close attention, obviously, to the Guardians daily. There's an opportunity. There's a strong opportunity to not only get a slot in that wild card, there's an outside chance still of the AL Central Division.
Yeah, the Guardians, and I thought at the beginning of the year, with the little amount of moves they made in the offseason and with the morale being pretty low, considering we had an ALS or ALCS appearance yesterday or last year, I thought the Guardians' best play was going to be stay around 500, stay around a playoff spot, and then the last few weeks of the year, make your move. And the Guardians have put themselves in a situation that's precisely what they can do. They have really two teams between them and a playoff spot right now, both in Texas. The Houston Astros and the Rangers. Astros are sitting at 81 and 69 on the year. The Rangers are a couple games back on that. So they really have to leapfrog these two teams to get a wild card spot. Now, the good news is that they do have their final 3 games against the Texas Rangers to finish out the season. So if Texas is in that last spot and it's less than 3 games, we have meaningful baseball. But other than that, you are going to have to be looking at what the Houston Astros are doing, to a point what the Seattle Mariners are doing, because AL West politics out there. You got the Astros and the Mariners fighting over for that division. But you're going to have to basically look at the 2 Texas teams and Seattle as teams that have to lose. And a lot of times I wouldn't be as concerned right now about 2.5 back. Be concerned about jumping over teams. You got to jump over Texas to have a chance to jump over Houston. So all they can really do is win games, and hopefully that some of these teams in the wild card race will falter down the line. The good news is with Seattle, they have a 6-game road trip coming up. They are horrible on the road. The Guardians should be able to make up something at least on that if they're a wild card team. The American League Central Division is simple, but it's not.
Tell us more.
You got to be 7 games better than Detroit in the final, how many games we have left of the season? 12 games of the season.
But at least how many of those are head-to-head against Detroit?
That's why I'm saying it's simple, but it's hard. You have 6 you have half of your remaining games against the Detroit Tigers. You have 12 games left. 6 of them are against Detroit. So in theory, a 5.5 game lead, 6.5 game lead, if you take care of business, 3 in Detroit, 3 in Progressive, you are in theory with Detroit. Now, that's assuming you take care of business against the Texas Rangers and the Minnesota Twins, or the other 3 games. But yeah, really, it is it is a simple but very remote possibility to catch the Tigers in the American League Central. It's a far more complex but a little bit more attainable thing to do with the wild card. That's about the best way I can put it.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, in September to be, I'm just thinking, and I have not been able to watch full games in a little while, just here and there when they're on like Channel 3, or on Fox, but could you go, 4-2 against Detroit? That 5-1 is a high ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
Very high ceiling. But even 3-3, 4-2.
Well, 3-3 means you're not going to pick up any games.
You're not picking up a thing, no.
4-2 means you pick up 1. 5-1 means you pick up 2.
But at least from the standpoint of contending for the wild card, if you're able to, and that's the tough thing, it's like Detroit, can you do that? And again, you got to look at it from the standpoint of Detroit. Can they get to the finish line?
Well, they had an injury scare with Terry Skubal the other day. He's going to be the Cy Young Award winner for the 2nd straight year in the American League. And the Detroit pitching staff I have heard described as a hot mess, Terry Skubal and a hot mess. So his health is going to be tantamount going into the final stretch. He is not going to miss a start. He's actually going to be pitching against Cleveland on Tuesday. That should be fun to watch. But if his health does falter, then Detroit, who admittedly is not playing all that well right now the last 6 weeks of the season, if his health falters, then Detroit could have a real tough time.
Oh, it's a different ballgame.
Cleansing this thing up. And in Cleveland, it will be up to that, up to Cleveland to kind of jump on that and to figure out, how to overtake Detroit. And to do that, they're going to have to score some runs. They're going to have to, we can go through, the box scores here of the Cleveland Guardians the last couple of, weeks here. But long story short, except for a 10 spot against Kansas City a week ago tomorrow, they haven't put up more than 4 runs, 5 runs a game. It's for about the last 2 weeks. what has been keeping them in games, and actually not just in games, but able to win games, is the pitching staff. Today it was Slade Ciccone. He had a hell of an outing for the Guardians today, 5 2/3 innings pitched. Did give up a couple of runs, but that's been basically the MO for the Guardians. Yesterday was Parker Messick. He goes 6 innings, doesn't allow a run. Tanner Bybee, 9 shutout innings.
Needed that.
So you have maybe the bullpen might have taken a step back, but the starters have taken a step forward, and you are now facing 14, 15 guys on this pitching staff who can do this, as opposed to just maybe 2 or 3 relievers and a starter you're worrying about. But it's going to have to be the offensive side of the ball.
And I know Tanner, from what we expected coming into the season and what has actually happened, the expectation was initially not met. But to have those shutout innings, that's huge.
Yeah, well,
we need him.
It saves the bullpen. It basically gives the bullpen a night off, and in a stretch that actually finished up today, 17 days in a row with a game, you needed the bullpen to take a couple of nights off, and that's what Tanner gave them. And you also need to have a couple of these starters in the playoffs, and I'm going to basically treat these last 12 games as the playoffs.
Oh,
you need starters that will stop bad momentum. You'll stop a 2-game losing streak, stop a 1-game losing streak. And Bybee, for the first half a year of this season, has not been that guy, has not been the ace of this team, has not been the stopper. Now, I don't think he, yesterday or a couple of days ago when he threw the shutout, yes, he was that guy. I need to see it a few more times. He is pitching better, but between him, Gavin Williams, Joey Cantillo is looking okay. I just mentioned Parker Messick, who has had all of 4 big league starts and seems like he's doing pretty well with the opportunity he's been given. And you throw in all of these starting pitchers, and they're all doing their part right now, and they're giving a team that is averaging 2, 3, 4 runs a game the last couple of weeks a chance to win 10 out of 12 games. That's how ridiculous this pitching has been. The Guardians really haven't scored more than 4 or 5 runs in this stretch and have won 90% of their games. So
unbelievable.
If the offense can kick back up and turn this thing into 4 or 5 runs a game instead of 3 or 4, then we could be seeing a very fun run in October. We go back to July when the Guardians were absolutely the hottest team in the league. It wasn't because of the pitching. The pitching was about the same as it has been all year. What it was the offense scoring 5.5 runs a game. And then all of a sudden you put that pitching staff with a offense that can get pushing 6 a game. You're going to win a lot more.
Man, let's go, Guardians.
You're going to be able to actually do this. So,
man, let's go.
And it's going to, Jose Ramirez, we know he's going to be Jose. We know Stephen Kwan's going to be Stephen Kwan. But, Bo Naylor, he was the guy today. 2 hits, both of them drove in runs. He had 3 RBIs on the night, including a home run. It's going to have to be guys like him. It's going to be CJ Kafis, who had a big home run yesterday and who has been actually playing pretty well since being called up. It's going to have to, it's going to be the guys that are supporting Jose and Kwan. When you look at the box scores, whenever the bottom third of the lineup does pretty well, and I'm talking 2 or 3 hits between 3 guys, that's when they win games. And they're going to have to continue to do that for the remainder of the season to give themselves a chance to get in, and then give themselves a chance once they get in.
Yeah, we're gonna see definitely. I will say this: whenever I go to a game, Bo Naylor actually does well. I'm not. I'm just. I don't know.
He is hitting 300 in September.
Yeah, but hey, listen. They might put the batting averages back up on the scoreboard instead of the OPS.
Yeah. Well, because we got tired of those numbers that started with 1 and 0.
Oh boy.
But yeah. So these guys will be able to. I would assume be able to develop. So
I think we have time for one more segment. Because
we shall see. I got to be up in about 4 hours.
Oh boy! You know what? You want to just power through this quickly?
We can do a quick. Yeah. Actually, let's take a quick break here. We'll sit and reset. We'll give you a chance to catch your breath. We'll be back in a couple of minutes here. This is the main event here on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. That's Anthony Alford. I'm Rob Rozycki. Eli Moon, parts unknown. We don't know where he's at. We'll be back. Hi. This is the main event here on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. We got Anthony Alford to my right. I am Rob Rozycki. We got a few minutes left of this, I was going to say quality radio program, but we'll say quality podcasting program. We talked a little bit about the Browns, talking a little about the NFL at large, and because we need good football to talk about after the Browns. And obviously the Guardians, they're well in the thick of it right now in the American League playoff race, inexplicably, after looking like death for about a month, a 10-game losing streak, a couple of suspensions for gambling, massive embarrassment for the franchise, but yet they have managed to get through this thing and are keeping their heads above water. But it seems like between baseball and the football, we got that pretty much covered. I have basically, Double A gave me a couple of topics that we could kind of go through the last 10 minutes of the show here. I will let him decide either do we go money in college football or do we go money in professional wrestling?
Let's go quick on the football thing, quickly. Ohio State brought up their school president says, like, hey, we need a bigger revenue share, like in the Big Ten.
Well, I know they're pretty broke. They don't make a lot of money. So
Ohio State doesn't really do much. One of these
small school,
small organization, small program. One of these years they can compete for a playoff.
Solid mid-major.
Yeah, that's right. By the way, spoken like a true BG fan. Come on, Eddie George, let's go. Listen, school president's right, because I'll just say this: if Fox Sports, who has the biggest share of the Big Ten, if they're looking at Ohio State every single week and saying if Ohio State's available, and I know like the other networks have like the selection process and stuff, whenever Ohio State's available, they're always in Big Noon. Always.
Oh, yeah. And whenever Ohio State has a free night, Fox Sports is taking them out.
That's right. And it's always 12 o'clock. That's that. And again, I understand the students are upset with the whole 12 o'clock day, but the bigger thing, we just brought this up briefly. If Ohio State, and I'll credit you for this was your idea, if it ever were to happen. If Ohio State just said, screw it, we're going to go independent. And how much, like Fox Sports, I think would pay just as much, even probably more, to exclusively broadcast Ohio State football games than they are for the entire Big Ten Conference.
I think financially it would make sense. I mean, financially, Ohio State is one of the few teams that could pull a Notre Dame, who has a contract with NBC Sports, to be, have a similar national broadcasting contract. I don't think financially it would be a problem. I think financially it might even help them out a little bit to have more control over what the brand's going to do. I think from a competitive standpoint, though, it could hurt them a little bit because, you look at their schedule right now. They just got done with the Ohio Bobcats non-conference game.
No mascots were hurt.
They are going to be, facing some of the dregs of the Big Ten coming up in the next few weeks. And anybody who gets mad at them for that, saying, okay, you had a cupcake opponent. Well, I'm in the Big Ten. What can I do? That's the schedule I'm given. If you are Notre Dame, if you're, at BYU was independent for a long time, Army, the service academies, if you're making your own schedule, then if you schedule a cupcake, that's your fault. So you're either going to be docked for, scheduling Sisters of the Poor, or you're going to have to deal with facing a legitimate team every week in, week out. And I don't think that's going to always end in 12-0, 13-0, undefeated seasons. So
unless
I could see life becoming on the field a little harder for Ohio State than maybe financially.
Unless the playoff field expands to like 28 or 32 teams, and that's another conversation.
That's a bigger change, and I think that's what this could be leading Ohio State in. Maybe not so much going independent, which I think is an option. This is going to be bringing everybody closer to a Super League because Ohio State has a legitimate point. They are a different animal than Purdue. They are a different animal than Minnesota. They are a different animal than right now even UCLA, any of these Big Ten schools that are not Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. It is those three teams and pretty much everybody else. And the difference between Ohio State, though, with Michigan and Penn State, it's always Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Ohio State's always at the top. Michigan, Penn State, they'll have a down year every once in a while. or, suspensions. So you have teams in Ohio State and in Michigan specifically that have different interests than some of these lower Northwesterns, the Indianas, those types of schools. Their interests are closer to, say, Alabama, Texas, Florida. We all know the big college schools. We all know the blue bloods. Those guys have different interests than even some of their own conference schedule. And if Ohio State's chirping about money right now with their conference schedule, I said, you know what? We might as well just, if we have a problem with this, we can just form our own conference and we can make our own league and we can have our own champion and we'll make all the money.
And Michigan will pair up with this too.
Yeah, Michigan will be.
Like, if
Michigan,
you're looking
maybe
for
Penn State.
Yeah, if you're looking for a school or two that will pair up, then they will. Quickly on the Saudi thing. I know you had again, myself and Kyle Cornell, we do the Side Hustle Wrestling podcast, so we got a little bit of thoughts.
They're experts
out on that, but
I'm a fan.
The Saudi thing, this goes above traditional wrestling talk. This is a fundamental business direction that's really, really changing the way a company is looking at finances. I think that could do some damage.
And for those of you who aren't acquainted with the story, the WWE on Friday, I believe, yes, the 12th of September. I say that date for a reason. On the 12th of September, announced that they will be taking not WrestleMania 42 in this upcoming March.
This upcoming March.
That'll be in Vegas. But
April.
The next one, the April of 27, will be taking place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Which, by the way, for context, the upcoming WrestleMania was originally scheduled for New Orleans. They took that away because Vegas outbid New Orleans and
more money.
Same deal.
Same reason why Saudi Arabia got the granddaddy of them all, the clash of the immortals at WrestleMania. And I have not seen a move made by WWE, who has been creatively, business-wise, doing pretty well the last couple of years post Vince McMahon. I have not seen a move made by that current management group that made the majority of fans want Vince McMahon back. That's how catastrophically destructive this move could be for wrestling fans around. And I'm somebody who has had a relationship with wrestling for pretty much most of my life. I was the little kid Hulkamaniac who, made my dad drag me to the, Palace in Kalamazoo, Michigan to watch Macho Man and Hulk Hogan and Hacksaw and all those guys. I was the kid that watched it through the Attitude Era who, used it as one of the few connections that I had with my father for a long time. And then, in my 20s, 30s, now 40s, it's been a good way to, have a Saturday night or, occupy, have a good time for a night. This is dirty. This makes it feel so much different. This is different than pretty much anything they have put up there. And the reason why fans are going crazy about this, and the reason why fans are lamenting the return of the oft-accused and never duplicated Vincent Kennedy McMahon, is because we find out throughout all of this process that it was Vince who was the one that was trying to keep the tickets down. It was Vince who was still trying to make it affordable for a family of four, for a young college kid to go want to see a show, to basically not price out a lot of their fans. This move is completely negating all of that. They are pricing out their fans, and they are trying to do it for the highest possible dollar. And yes, you have fans that are irritated for many, many different reasons. Number one, you have the foreign fans, the ones in England, the ones in Germany, maybe even Mexico to a point. They've been putting a lot of shows down there with AAA that wonder why they're not getting their WrestleMania first if it's going to go overseas.
Yeah, it was the AAA show on Friday when they showed the graphic.
Triple Mania is what they call it.
Yeah,
right?
Triple Mania, or World's, whatever it was called. And they put the graphic up, and the fans in Mexico chanted, "You sold out."
Yeah.
And they chanted that in English. So you were well aware of what was said.
Kudos on being bilingual with that. But yeah, you have a lot of fans abroad who are very, very offended and hurt that, they have given their time, their money, their energy to the WWE, to everything that they're about. They are consumers of their content. They pay their money. They pay the WWE's bills, and they're wondering why they've gotten left out in the weeds. Then you have the domestic sports fan, the domestic wrestling fan, Anthony, myself. Anthony, you've been to a WrestleMania. You've been to the MetLife.
Yeah, I have. And with those prices, I'm probably never going to be able to go back.
And you knew that was going to be the case. And even it being in New York City, which is a day and a half drive away from here, that was still a monumental thing to organize. And that was still a lot of work to put together. What average wrestling fan sitting in Bedford, Ohio, sitting in, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, is going to have the money and the resources to get together a trip to fucking Riyadh?
Yeah, nobody's going.
Riyadh.
Yeah.
This is Saudi Arabia. This isn't Schenectady. This isn't Juneau, Alaska. This isn't Honolulu, Hawaii. This isn't even England. This is not London, Paris, Munich, anything.
And
would you feel Saudi Arabia?
And would you feel comfortable taking your significant other to that show? Would you feel comfortable taking a woman to that show?
I was going to say, yes. Now we have to worry about what sex is the significant other.
Like, do you have enough clothes?
We are putting WrestleMania in a place where the women talent are going to have to dress differently so they don't get arrested. That's where we're doing it. And that brings it to the third reason why a lot of people are pissed off. And that's pretty much where I'm at right now, because I don't spend a lot of money on tickets. I don't spend a lot of money on going to these live events. Sports washing. If you're not familiar with that term, it's been around now for a couple of years. It's whitewashing. It's kind of a derivative of that. It's the idea that a culture who beheads women for speaking out, who executes them for having the gall to get raped, who didn't let them drive a car until just a couple of years ago, who is a Muslim fundamentalist government. Their actual constitution, they do not have one. It's the Quran. They use the religious doctrine as actual law. And they have done it, and they have sports washed this now a couple of times. This is the idea of, hey, we'll buy up Live Golf. Hey, we'll get Ronaldo to play on one of our soccer teams. We'll get other Western athletes over here to say, hey, Saudi Arabia, not that bad of a place. Don't worry about what they're doing to the wifey over there.
We'll sign up Canelo Alvarez and Bud Crawford, put it on Netflix.
Lionel Messi is even also is even working with the government right now. He's not playing for him. But yeah, I didn't even realize that card was in Saudi Arabia until I saw the card.
The card was in Vegas.
Okay,
but it was ran by
the People's Activity Fund or whatever it is out there,
in partnership with TKO and Dana White.
And that's what Saudi Arabia is trying to do, is trying to make themselves seem more normal and seem more a part of the international community, even though they haven't had any interest in doing anything with the international community for a few generations. It is Saudi Arabia's attempt to weasel their way in the modern sports world, the modern American Western world, and make those modern American dollars. And regardless of economic class, regardless of your passion of the wrestling business, again, I'm sitting next to somebody right now, does the wrestling podcast, does the side hustle, knows what he's talking about with wrestling, watches it week to week, consumes it. I am not that guy. I will talk wrestling history with you. I'll talk about the stuff I saw when I was a kid. I am not a hardcore wrestling fan of the 2020s right now. But for somebody, even in my scenario, it is incredibly offensive. It is incredibly financial. Soulless financially is pretty much the way it is. And this kind of goes to a bigger thing. We're talking Ohio State with the Big Ten. We're talking about the Guardians spending money. We're talking about the NFL, all of this money being changed hands, and players and athletes and management and everything like that are selling out things that you shouldn't sell out for money. And it's one thing when Myles Garrett all of a sudden is okay enough with the quarterback scenario in Cleveland to get paid $40 million a year. That's one thing. He's going to have to deal with that, and that is no one's going to get hurt out of that. No one's going to die. No one's going to have any problems with that. But when it's with all of this stuff, and it is, I don't care where this money is coming from. I don't care who this money is coming from. Give us our money. We need more. We only made a couple $2 billion last year. Our boardroom is going to get pissed if it's not $3 or $4 billion this year. Greed is going to be the descriptive word for pretty much everything in sports and maybe even a little society in general right now. But this is a move for greed. They want to maximize every dollar. They don't care where the dollar comes from, and they don't honestly care who they screw over to get to those dollars. And that's why fans are pissed.
It's the bottom line, and we'll wrap up with this. But it's that bottom line thing. TKO, runs UFC, runs WWE, and financially they're not where they need to be. So this is almost a bailout of, you got people who don't understand and don't know the history of professional wrestling, don't know the history of MMA. They're going to sell this thing. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, Saudi Arabia, their goal, this organization, hey, we want to buy TKO.
Yeah, I was going to say, Saudi Arabia was originally rumored to buy WWE when Vince McMahon was accused and had to get out of the company.
I would not put them past them for this to be theirs.
Yeah.
In the next couple of years, the next few years.
Well, it's either going to be Saudi Arabia or it's going to be private equity. Those are going to be the two entities that are going to be funneling into sports, maybe some cases at the same time. We talk about college football, which with the Big Ten, there's scenarios where private equity could get involved with what's going on in college football, where Notre Dame now licensed the Golden Dome and the likeness and all that stuff to a company to run their team.
And that's the thing. This is not just as a fan, you would be making a mistake if you just think, it's just a wrestling or a MMA problem. That's over there. We ain't got nothing to worry about. You're right. If you're a college football fan, if you are any sporting fan not named the NFL.
Well, even in the NFL, because the issue is that with Saudi Arabia and private equity both, is you have these teams. What the Dallas Cowboys were evaluated at $7 or $8 billion. You got the Yankees that are 4 or 5. Most of these teams now, you can't be a private business guy owning a chain of hardware stores in Cleveland and then go buy the Cavs. You got to have a global reach mortgage company to have that money. So there are fewer and fewer people that are able to buy these teams. And the fewer and fewer that are able to buy these teams, the less selective they can be on this stuff. And the more and more it is these investment firms, it is the People's Activity Fund in Saudi Arabia that are going to have the money to actually get these teams.
And they're building goodwill out of it too. I mean, think about, being able to see that type of fight last night with Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez on Netflix, just on regular Netflix, not pay-per-view. That's how you get into the good graces, right? You get into the good graces, and then
and it's going to be a long road to hoe because, and I mentioned at the top of this segment why I mentioned the date that they announced it. It was September 12th, 2025. They announced it. It was one day after the 29th anniversary, or the 24th anniversary, I apologize, of the Twin Towers going down. And we all know where a lot of those hijackers were from. We know what government was providing a lot of cover for them. And that is what they are trying to whitewash over with a Canelo Alvarez fight or a Triple H promo in the ring or a Phil Mickelson drive down a fairway. That is what they're doing. And the WWE did not do themselves any favors by announcing all of this stuff literally the day after the anniversary of the largest terrorist attack in this country's history, and they announced that they're doing business with the country that enabled it to happen.
Took the money and ran. It's all site fees.
The only way to sell out, the only way to get paid is to sell out, and that's exactly what Triple H did.
There you go. All right, you got to go to bed.
Yeah, I got to be up in like
Let's wrap
5
this-
hours. So 4
Wrap
hours.
this up.
All right. Well, thank you for
Is
joining
Eli
us
going to
here.
be back next week?
You'd have to ask Moon that one. We got to LoJack that bad.
Do we have to tape at his studio next week? Can we go to your place next
We
week?
can do mine next week. That's fine. Well, I'll let the girlfriend know, and I'm sure she'll be thrilled to see everybody come on over. But
I think she'll be thrilled, like, oh, you don't have to leave the house every single week.
yeah, that's pretty much it here. Yeah, I think she'll be very thrilled about that because I got a half-hour drive home, and then I got to work tomorrow morning. But none of you care about that. You care about you care about the Guardians. You care about the Browns. You care about the Browns getting their asses kicked. You care about the Guardians kicking some ass.
I care about my curtains. I need to go back up.
And you care about spending $3,000 to get a shitty nosebleed seat at a WrestleMania event. But hopefully you care about us too, because we're going to be around next week. It'll be Sunday night. We'll try to zone in on a regular time as this thing progresses throughout the interwebs here. But if you've been watching throughout the whole thing, thank you very, very much.
Yeah,
if you've only been
seriously,
watching part of it, get here earlier, man. What are you doing? We need the help, and we got to monetize this thing. But for Anthony Alford, I am Rob Rozycki. And for Eli Moon, wherever he may be.
He's in the air somewhere.
Yeah, well, we love you, Moon. I am Rob Rozycki, Anthony Alford. This is the main event on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network, and we'll see you next week.
Oh.